whilst there's been a lot of talk about China and India so far this morning, if you look at the if DHL, for example, looks at its own business in ASEAN in comparison to the rest of the world, it's growing in ASEAN at much faster than many other markets around the world, whether you look at Africa, Latin America, the EU or the US. Yes, it might be growing slightly slower than China or India, but there's a whole world out there for ASEAN to compete in. It's not just China and India.
For me, the question is very simple. It's between doing the right thing and the popular thing. That's exactly what this debate or this session is about. And more often than not, especially in ASEAN or especially in developing countries, especially in Malaysia, these two things are mutually exclusive. So most of the times, the right thing is not the popular thing. And I'll go into that a bit later. But this is why leadership comes in, especially leadership in terms of political leadership, but not just political leadership. I think when people talk about leadership, they tend to think about politicians. They tend to think about ministers, prime ministers, presidents. They forget the private sector. They forget civil society itself. All these three stakeholders, main stakeholders, have an important role in terms of changing and making the right decisions and not pandering to what we can call populist impulses. But why I draw on the lesson of leadership here today is very simple. Because in the case of Malaysia, leadership, whether it's political, business, or civil society, is confronted with a major dilemma. The dilemma that I spoke of earlier, which is the popular thing and the right thing. But that is benchmarked or that is presented, that dilemma is presented in a context where there simply isn't any time. There simply isn't any time to make the structural adjustments that you need to in your economy if you want to remain competitive, if you want to achieve the goals that you've set out for Malaysia's case, to become a developed country, developed economy by 2020, to have a gross national income per capita of $15,000 by 2020. There just isn't enough time. But a corollary to that would be the political risk. You don't have enough time to make these changes, but if you do try to push these changes through fast and thick, you will suffer some sort of political backlash. And that is why leadership at this stage is preeminent and is paramount